always enjoy when the projections come out and Baseball Prospectus, PECOTA. They project the Cardinals 85 wins, but winning the division. Fangraph's the same. Fangraph's the same, about 85 wins, winning the division. Clay Davenport, who's one of the pioneers in the field, he has the Cardinals with 85 wins and winning the division. In fact, Baseball Prospectus goes as far as saying that the Cardinals have a 53% chance to win the division and 63% chance to make the playoffs. What do you make of that? Because there's so much doom and gloom on the ground here in St. Louis, you know? Usually Cardinals fans get upset when PECOTA underestimates the Cardinals' win total. This year they're going to get upset because they think they're not that good. What are you talking about? So they're going to get mad at them for an entirely different reason this year with PECOTA. It's like, no, you're overestimating. So go ahead. What do you think about it?
No, I agree. I think, well, first of all, I like the percentage ones more, right? The ones that say this is the confidence interval, this is a 50% likelihood, this is 60%. I like those. I will also say that the projections, Bernie, reinforce what you and I have talked about for, I don't know, it feels like years. If you build your team upon a bedrock of pitching, you're going to have a chance. Yes. Like if you just build it on the foundation of innings, you're going to have a chance. And that's what the Cardinals have done. And so in a little way, they have a roster that has a little PECOTA candy, you know, that has a little Zips candy in it, that has a little sweetener for the projections because they're more innings based. And that is going to lead to a pretty still conservative but good projection for them.
You know, I was looking at PECOTA because, again, it's more just entertainment. And I'm always interested in how, you know, independent projection models, third-party projection models, what they come up with and how they view the team that we cover and write about. And one thing that was interesting with every one of their starting pitchers except for Matz, and they project Matz will average PECOTA 5.2 innings per start. But everyone else, all the other Cardinals starters are projected to average anywhere from 5.7, 5.6, 5.7, 5.9. You know, in other words, getting closer to 6 innings. And last year, they really didn't have anybody doing that. Except for Miklasz. And they only had one guy over an average of 5.5 innings per start, and that was Miklasz. Now, if you believe these projections, you can see already that there's a pretty strong belief that, you know, the Cardinals are going to get more innings out of their starters, and I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's the way to kind of look at it is, if you get more innings from your starters, all of which are above replacement, then those are fewer outs that you got to get from players that are below replacement. That's just as simple as you get with the PECOTA projections, right? That's a much better situation than they had last year where, you know, I was listening to I have Seeing Red as my companion here for a little bit, and I haven't finished it yet. But one of the things you guys talk about was listing all the players that no one will believe played for the Cardinals, right? And that was after the trade deadline and all that stuff. But look at some of the names of the people who pitched innings before the trade deadline and the struggles they had and how they're nowhere to be found. If you close that gap, if you take your starters and you close that gap to your above replacement level relievers, you're a good team. It's that gooey nugget in the middle that causes such problems.
And it really is. A lot of this really is, even before you talk about the relievers that they've brought in. You know, there's so much addition by subtraction because I know these guys were trying their best, but that was a pretty sorry lot of relievers that wandered in there last year. And you know, we understand the reasons why, but they just, they cleared a lot of dead branches out of there, I guess is a way I'm saying it. So when you do that and you have some people with upside, you are going to automatically be better. So I firmly believe that. I don't think I'm being Pollyanna. I think it's just a matter of common sense.
Yeah, with health, you'll be better than, I mean, the guy who pitched the second most innings in the bullpen last year was Drew Verhagen. And Drew Verhagen had great stuff and delighted the metrics, but he didn't give them the chance to win those games while he was pitching. Now they have guys that they either will do that or they'll move on. They don't have to hold them onto the roster. There's nothing that is like no commitment, no dollars, nothing that is like, oh, well, this guy's going to stick for a little while. They just don't have that.
Do you one of the recent times you were on, Derrick Goold with us from Daytona Beach, Florida, on his way to Jupiter. We talked about Chris Stratton and how effective he was during his time with the Cardinals as being the chase pitcher, like comes in kind of early or earlier than the other high leverage relievers, and he's got to keep the game where it is just to get it to the later innings and a chance to win. And he was really good at that. If you were to, think about this and like, okay, who do you think is best equipped to fill that kind of role? Do you think they have a guy that can replicate what Stratton was able to do very effectively?
Yeah, I mean, Kittredge right away, unless he's in a higher leverage spot. But Kittredge right away does that and does it better. He's in that role until he pitches his way or is needed in a higher leverage spot. And then if that's the case, then they need Palante to be that guy or Robertson to be that guy. Or if Kittredge bumps aside Gallegos, then Gio becomes a really effective chase reliever, if that makes sense. So you have, right, like Kittredge is the guy, throws strikes, barely never walks anybody, all of that stuff. And it's, if he's needed in a higher leverage spot, then it kind of moves around from there. But they have options. Palante with his ground ball effectiveness, he can miss a few more bats. Robertson has some really intriguing stuff. Probably, it has to be more aggressive with it, I guess is a good way to describe it. But you have the makeup there. But Kittredge right away has all the makings, does that, and then if he dislodges Gallegos from a setup role, then don't discount Gallegos, another guy who is not going to walk folks and is going to go out there and either miss bats or get ground balls.
What is your you mentioned Palante, and
yeah.
I know, and you got Derrick. Please forgive me because it's inexcusable, but I read so much sometimes. If a story was written a month ago or whatever, I have a hard time.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering whether you wrote it or Lynn Worthy wrote it, so I apologize in advance. But it was a very detailed piece about what Andre Palante's been working on. And, that always inspires some hope that he can be better. What are your thoughts on that? Will he be better?
I believe you're referencing the story that Daniel Guerrero did.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
I picked the wrong doors. Yeah, Guerrero wrote it. And again, I apologize. I do.
Yeah, Daniel did that. It was a really good story. And it talked about how right away at the end of the season, Andre Palante and Zach Thompson skedaddled to Carolina, North Carolina, where outside of Charlotte, they worked with a facility there that has recently become most famous because of the work that Jordan Montgomery has done there. But what they did was essentially pitchcraft. They wanted to work on, here's the pitches, here's how the most effective, how do I make the stuff I'm good at great? And how do I find ways to make the stuff I got miss bats? And Palante started working on the death ball, curve ball, and that's something that plunges and can play off of his fastball in a way that should get more swings and misses, not just more weak contact. And that's positive. And that's also something that then he can show right-handers to get them off the other pitches a little bit. again, he's got to see how hitters. That was the one thing he told me at the winter warm-up was he wants to see it against hitters. He hasn't seen it really against major league hitters, and he's eager to do that, like in live BP, and get feedback from his teammates, Bernie, about what that looks like.
Because Palante would be huge if he can, just rebound from last season and take the thing that he does well, but just do them more often and build on that, which I think is that's that Tampa Bay philosophy that, Chaim Bloom is going to be bringing to St. Louis in some capacity, taking what guys do and making that better, encouraging them to do more with it.
And that just was what Dusty Blake has said too, Bernie. That was one of the things he really tried to drill in is like, don't become a new pitcher, become a great at what you already do good.
And I'm sure somewhere along the way, and I think Keenan Middleton is a sharp guy, don't get me wrong, but the impact that changeup had in just changing his fastball effectiveness, he was reluctant to throw it I'm talking about a 3-year period. So it went from 12% to 17%, and then last season, like 41%. And all of a sudden, his fastball just still throwing it as hard as he did. He didn't make any changes with the fastball. It's just hitters couldn't sit on it. He wasn't as predictable. See?
Yeah, he's got a little counterintuitive move to that changeup, so it plays up really well.
And the Cardinals, I think they have enough arm power where some of these relievers, where they have really good arms, they got stuff, but to use your phrase, pitchcraft. The pitchcraft work, because it really can make a difference. It can make a huge difference, and I think that's something. Go ahead.
Sorry. When you asked about like the chase pitcher, I didn't mention Middleton because I kind of get the feel they want more from him. Like they want more from him. In a way, like I think he's kind of on the precipice in the sense that like he could, if they get what they think they can from him, he's a guy who's going to pitch in high leverage spots. If he doesn't do that, then I'm not sure he's going to pitch in spots other than to absorb innings, and I'm not sure he'd be a chase guy. I think he's a real fascinating, like almost binary reliever coming into this, where he's either high leverage or he's not. He's a 0 or 1 in that sense. I reserve the right to be completely proven wrong by that, and it may happen. But just in the talking to people who know him, talking to folks like who saw what he did, and seeing some of the reaction to him signing with the Cardinals from fans that saw him more often last year. Just all of that, looking at the metric, I think they want more from him. I think they're really intrigued by what he could do in a high leverage spot.
And he hasn't had much opportunity in his career, because I was looking at that the other day doing my stats stuff. He has not had many opportunities. He's been really good in medium leverage situations. And I only go back. I only look at this year because his whole pitching profile. I only look at 2023 because that's when his pitching profile changed. So I don't know that the past stuff is really all that relevant. But yeah, the White Sox and the Yankees, they didn't really entrust him to pitch at high leverage. But I don't think that it means they didn't like him. I think it just meant I think they thought they had guys who would handle that better. So, did you like the signing from a baseball standpoint, Middleton? Did you think the Cardinals did pretty well with that?
That's a great question, Bernie. I think it's kind of their approach to the bullpen this year, where they didn't want to pay the sure thing prices because two reasons. One, they didn't, and two, their sure thing comes with an asterisk when it comes to bullpens, right? I thought, they really, if anything, they could really use some kind of veteran stability out there. And, that's something that they talked about adding to the clubhouse a lot, obviously. But then they didn't do it to the bullpen. They didn't add like a Phil Maton. That would have made a lot of sense to me. Like if you think, all right, bringing in a Matt Carpenter, bringing in some of these guys, bringing in a Kyle Gibson, Matt Carpenter for the clubhouse, Gibson for the rotation, Lynn for the rotation. And then it's like, well, who's that guy out in the bullpen? Like, where's that guy? And if you added Phil Maton, it'd be like, oh, there's that guy. There he is. Okay. Yeah, he's been through it. He knows what it's like. They talk so much about adding people who have been through it, and then they don't in the bullpen. I found that really fascinating. I mean, Kittredge he's been through it, but that's one, and he's not yet become a free agent, and he's coming back from injury. You know, I thought that was a real interesting, like, contradiction.
Derrick, before we go, it's always great to talk with you. Manager Yadier Molina, his team was eliminated from the Caribbean Series, so he's all ready to go as far as reporting to spring training whenever he reports. Like, he doesn't have any obligations baseball. You now, I know you did a piece on that, the fact that he would be managing Puerto Rico in that tournament, and you recapped his winter ball managing. Have you received any feedback or any reports in terms of people just observing his work as a manager? Do you have a feel for how much how effective he was, or maybe not was? A scouting report, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah. So early stages, I mean, not like done a whole lot, or he hasn't done a whole lot, so not like tons of people. In Venezuela, he got ejected a lot. And one of the things was, like, you know, you got to manage, you got to be there for your team, right? And this is what, like, scouts and other folks say. They're like, he was arguing as if he was still a catcher. And in a way, it's a lot easier to do it under your breath and try to massage the strike zone and try to lobby and everything like that. From the dugout, he was being ejected. Out, done, right? He got ejected from the championship game in Puerto Rico, right, for arguing balls and strikes. But that was his first ejection. And I don't want to belabor the ejection thing, except for it just was that kind of thing. It was like, how does he transition from what made him so great behind the plate as far as managing personalities and managing the game, but doing so in a very prominent spot, to then doing it in a very prominent role. Those are different things. And, you know, he has from every indication, he has really, and it'll come as no surprise, like, whatever he learned in Venezuela, he put in place in Puerto Rico fast. And he worked with, and he's got a real keen feel for, you know, just game, like exploiting edges within a game and finding them. And he's doing that as a manager. He's got a real feel for the game. You know, the use of relievers and stuff like that. If you see some of the stuff he did, dealing with even restrictions like in the World Baseball Classic or that Winter Ball has, he's been very nimble with that stuff. You know, and then along the lines, kind of the next phase, and this is kind of the role he's going to have with the Cardinals, so it'll kind of merge right in, is that development aspect. Not just putting a team out there and saying, all right, here's the strategy, here's how I can get the most from you. It's how do I coach you up to get more from you? So that you're making the decisions instead of me pointing them out. And that kind of has been described as a next step for him. You know, his older brother, Jose Molina, has a really good reputation for, like, teaching and for for just having a good bedside manner to work with players. And I think, you know, Yadi's getting some of that as well. They worked closely together this winter, for example. And again, that'll be his role with the Cardinals in a lot of ways. Development. I think we all know that few people have a feel for the game better, if anyone, maybe no one, has a feel for the game better and can identify and exploit an edge. Now the teaching aspect of that is kind of where Molina's next spot is.
Derrick Goold, my friend, thank you for your time. At least, hopefully, we helped you kill some time on your drive. So look forward to reading everything you do down in Camp Jupiter. No, you're the best, man. Thank you so much.
All right, looking forward to it. Last, Bernie, I don't have the the Nixon condo. Sorry.
Oh man, I just want that painting.
No kidding. I just want to see that painting again.
Nixon in China. I want that
So
painting.
amazing.
I know.
It's amazing.
You know, I'm not saying it's a true story. There may have been an evening or two at the condo where I perhaps overserved myself. And you know how Nixon talked to paintings in the White House? Talked to like, Lincoln, the official.
Sure.
I was talking to the Nixon painting. So
Yeah.
I try to recreate history, but kind of in reverse.
I'm not worried about that. The only thing that would trouble me is if he talked back.
Well, but that's one of I was a weird kid growing up because I had a love of politics and I followed everything at a young age. And these Nixon stories, during the crack up and, him frankly being intoxicated and like talking to the paintings, the presidential portraits in the White House late at night, alarming Henry Kissinger and everybody. That's just classic stuff. So yeah, I was talking to Nixon. It might have been a couple, 3 nights, where I was.
That works.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling much pain. So anyway,
Good.
I don't recall if I don't believe, like, to your point, I don't think he gave me any advice. But he does but Nixon loved baseball, huge baseball fan. So I think I was talking to him about when he picked his all-time team. I was giving him my thoughts on that. Yeah. So he didn't object.
Was one of the Boyer brothers at third base he had to have a Boyer brother at third base.
I don't remember. I got to look that up. He actually did. I actually think he did a really good job with that team because when Stan the Man was getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, I wanted to do a story, which I did for the Post-Dispatch, a bonus column on through the decades, Stan Musial's friendship with various politicians and some of the roles he played, and it was very interesting to. And I remember that. At one point, Stan the Man, was in effect invited by Nixon to offer advice about this player or that player, and so Stan was kind of like his cabinet, member of his baseball cabinet. So, yeah, I love that stuff. I love it. So,
that's awesome.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. Yep.
Thank
Talk to you later. Bye.
See, yeah, I don't. Jim, are you? Do you remember the stories about Nixon talking to the portraits?
I've heard of them. Yes.
I mean, just I
love it.
The only aspect of politics I ever talk about on this show is about sort of going back to childhood and some of the things were going on then. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that I've had this pragmatic side to me in terms of I insist on looking at not sort of going to an extreme position. I always want to hear what the other side has to say.
Yeah.
Which I think has been kind of lost.
Oh, it's really lost.
Yeah. But I'm not going to change. My mind is always open to ideas, even if maybe I come at it from a different political orientation than the person over there or whatever. But a lot of that had to do with my parents, because my father, Bernie Sr., was when I say conservative Republican, conservative means something different now, but my father was like a Republican, my mother was a Democrat, and they would, there would be discussions around the kitchen table, and I'm soaking it all up, and I'm listening to one side and the other side, and I'm thinking, this is great, because I'm not, in other words, like I feel, I really mean this, and I don't do it, so I practice what I preach. I actually feel sorry for people that all they watch is Fox News or all they watch is MSNBC. And it's just this echo chamber that never ends. And there's no, if you are addicted to depending on your political beliefs, if you are addicted to one of those organizations on TV, your mind is so closed, and you leave no room for actual thought.
Agreed.
That apply again. Now the Fox News people think I'm ripping. No, I'm ripping both sides, right? Because
That's exactly it.
MSNBC is just as bad. It's unwatchable, right?
That's exactly it. That's what people. Oh, you're getting. No, it's not one side.
No.
It's nobody wants to come to the middle and find that.
Yeah, or just to have a discussion about it.
The discussion on it. It's like, no,
So
you're wrong.
Get out.
I don't want to target.
Facts don't matter. Facts are twisted all over the place. It actually saddens me for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons that I look back fondly on those days growing up in a home that was, one parent's voting for Humphrey, the other one's voting for Nixon. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I can appreciate that.
My father kind of teasing my mother. I'll never forget that. She didn't take it very well because he was predicting calmly, but he was predicting for weeks and months, that Nixon would destroy McGovern in the 72 election. My mother was holding out some kind of hope. I don't know, and so he was just, boy, did he give her some zingers. Betty Lee didn't take it too well.
Oh, no.
No, she did not.
Wow.
But I always, I'll close it out with this.
Sure.
I go off the highway a little bit here, in terms
That's
of.
okay. We can do that from time to time.
I was in the 5th grade. I'll never forget it. And I think maybe that was the 1972 election, the run-up to it, And social studies, I think that was the class, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. So they came up with the idea they were going to have, one kid, they're going to have a debate, one kid representing McGovern, the other one representing Nixon. Now, I didn't care either side because I thought, I just want to, this sounds like fun, a good debate. I'll be whoever you want me to be. And so the teacher, Ms. Harris, she basically told me, she says, well, I don't think anybody wants to be McGovern. I said, well, I'll be McGovern then. And so I'm going up against the Nixon kid. And the thing to me, this will not surprise anyone who knows that I'm a statistical nut and that I do research.
Right.
I was in the 5th grade for a mock debate in social studies class. I'm calling.
I can see this coming.
There's no internet. I'm calling McGovern headquarters, and I'm like, well, what are some things about Nixon that not talking about character attacks, but just policy? Like, where are some of his failings? And I'm taking notes, and I've got facts, and there was something about federal money that had been invested or not invested in law enforcement, things like that, right? So here comes the debate, right?
Yeah.
And I'm there with this notebook, and I got the pages open, and it's just like whatever the Nixon kid said, I just had an instant rebuttal, very forceful.
Right.
So this went on for like 10 minutes, right? The teacher, who obviously was a Nixon person,
oh no,
she got so incensed, she took over for the kid that was playing Nixon. So
now you're debating the teacher.
So the teacher had to intervene and take over for the other kid. And you know what? I still kept bombing her with facts. And she was frustrated. And I remember seeing her, a couple 3 years later, and we would joke about it. But I'm like, I told her, I said, you were getting mad at me. Why were you getting mad at me? I mean, seriously, like, you gave this assignment. And if I'm going to volunteer for this assignment, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So don't get mad at me because I was prepared. It's just like Sid Hartman hollering at me in the pro football selection.
Yeah. Stat boy.
I don't have these fancy numbers like Stat Boy over there. I don't have time for that nonsense, Well, don't get mad at me.
That's what the job is.
I'm prepared. I'm trying to prepare here,
Exactly.
Oh man, fun days though, But
that's awesome.
Yeah. But I used to talk to the Nixon painting down to the condo in Miami, or not Miami, Jupiter. Right?
That is great.
right?
Now in this condo, there was usually 4 of you guys for a while together, or was it 3?
Yeah, it would be well, Derrick there all the time, and then Hummel would move in, and he would be there. He would be there all spring training. So they would like before that it would be Joe Strauss. I mean, people were in, people were out.
Right.
Hummel at one point got his own place because he would usually have family come down.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But it was always Derrick, of course, and then and Joe Strauss would be down there. Burwell would come down there. The columnists would take shifts, so to speak. So most of the time it would be 3 people, and the condo was very nice, and I enjoyed it, and but yeah, I walked in and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! It's like that's a Nixon in China portrait. This is fascinating.
Right up your alley.
Yeah, so I had to study it.
Oh, that's
I had to
awesome.
study. Let's take. I'm hopeless, but this is fun talking about something totally different. I hope people don't mind. I hope they interpret these remarks in the spirit which they're intended, because I don't do ugly political talk. Okay?
No,
I just don't do it.
I tell you what, at some point we have to.
And I don't want to antagonize anybody because that's not my intention. I'm just kind of laughing at myself, basically.
At some point, and it doesn't have to be today, but at some point we have to have some story time to tell us some spring stories from covering the game and just some things that have occurred that you didn't get a chance to write about or
Yeah,
experiences.
for sure.
That's good. That is just gold. That really is.
For sure. There's no doubt about it.